Welcome everybody to the latest edition of the Inside Track with our sponsors FitPhone and Independent Gyms. We've got an amazing guest this morning now. Emma Barry, how are you?
I'm so good. Coming in from Los Angeles, a little warmer than wherever you are.
Yeah, tough gig you have out there. And obviously, as always, my trusted friend, Glenda Rivoallan. How are you, Glenda?
Very good. Lovely to have Emma on. I'm mega stoked about this one.
I've been excited all week. In actual fact, I've been excited since Emma agreed probably about 3 months ago. So what we'll do, we'll jump straight in. So I can't imagine, Emma, there's anybody in this whole industry who doesn't know who you are. But I think it's only right to give you an opportunity to sort of give a quick rundown. Who is Emma Barry? Where have you come from? And what are you up to now?
Great, and thanks for having me on. It's been a while. We've been stalking each other for a while, so thanks for having me. Look, I'm a global citizen of the world, so I was actually born in London, and we're heading back there this week for Christmas, which will be lovely. So I was born in London. I'm a Kiwi girl. I was brought up in New Zealand, and then was very fortunate to sort of come into the fitness industry. Went to phys ed school down in the deep south, Otago. Then moved to Auckland, worked for Philip Mills for a bunch of years in Les Mills, and was very fortunate to become a part of the founding members of Les Mills International. Got to see the world for a bunch of years. Went back, had a family in New Zealand, and then 9 years ago, we actually moved to the United States, won green cards. It's actually a thing. It happens, that much paperwork, but it happens. And then I had the great fortune of working for Equinox for 3 years, which was wonderful.
Oh, wow.
Fabulous brand. And then started getting invited around the world to speak. I'd had this travel bug, always had it in me. I blame my parents for having me in London and then pulling me to the other side of the world. So, needed to get out there. And so really have been consulting for the last bunch of years, last 5 or 6 years. And just more recently, we launched Good Soul Hunting, or rebranded an executive search brand. So living in LA, commuting to Europe, and really, really fortunate to have fitness whānau or family all the way around the world. And I'm going to keep it short because I know that people start dropping off at the 10-minute mark, don't they?
Love that,
Absolutely. But to be fair, with your career, Emma, I'm sure we could sit and listen to it all day. Now, in terms of you mentioned that Good Soul Hunting. What's all that about? Because obviously a lot of your stuff's been in sort of fitness and whatever. How did that side come out?
Yeah, well, look, I'm still in fitness. So I connected with a few colleagues, actually, that I actually hired a girl, 15 years ago at Les Mills. We remained friends, and there's a bunch of other people that we work with as well. But Good Soul Hunting is an executive search brand. So we place good souls, senior good souls, in purpose-driven roles. Now, we predominantly lead into fitness and health because that's what we know and that's what we're known for. But through the pandemic, we sort of switched from brick and mortar through to fully digital, now to hybrid solutions. And at the same time, we've broadened a little bit, and we now place people in health and wellness, and even sometimes things that are adjacent to fitness. So not just gyms and clubs and studios, but it's much broader. It's into wearables, it's into the recovery trend, it's into health apps, and we're beginning to bridge into health apps as well, pure health, as medical and clubs start to come together. The fitness and the health industry start to come and move together. So we place people predominantly in the United States. So we'll hire C-suite, sales, marketing, partnerships, growth people, and we'll hire down to about a manager, a country manager or something like that. So we're having a ball, but it's pulling a lot of people we know from the industry and placing people in great roles. And of course, the market is all over the place right now. Yeah. So we're very busy.
Emma, I would love to ask you about that. When you say the market's all over the place, obviously we've got the finger on the pulse in the UK market. What are you seeing in the US at the minute? And what's the big takeaways for us to be really aware of, and just get a bit of a good insight from that end of the water?
Right. So I think, I can come from the people and also the fitness perspective. I'll sort of blend both. So obviously we've been through a pandemic. A lot of things have changed. We've all reprioritized. We've all been displaced in some way, whether that is working from home, whether it's our business moved or closed, whether it's we shifted. In the US, people are very, very quick to move. Oh, I got a job in New York, I'm off. And you're kind of like, in New Zealand, it's kind of like, do I really want to live in Wellington and leave Auckland? Like, we think about it. Here, they don't tend to. It's just kind of, well, I'm off to Dallas, so
Wow.
that's something I've found quite different with the Americans. So if they have an opportunity, they will chase it. So a lot has changed, right? We've been pushed into digital, clubs closed, digital opened, clubs open, digital dipped. We saw the rise and fall of connected fitness, Peloton, and all its friends. However, I just want to give a quick note here. Let's not be too quick to jump and name and shame them, because they did a huge favor for our industry. They drove awareness. They proved that online communities could be very strong, and actually people are even more passionate about Peloton type products than they can be in face-to-face. So there's some learning in there. They taught us all sorts of things about technology and gamification and stickiness and value in price and all of these. So,
I don't think they did anything wrong, to be fair, Emma. I just think they tried to grow off the back of something that was unrealistic. So instead of taking that small market share, which they had the opportunity to do, I think they tried to take a bigger market share than they were entitled to, because as soon as the bricks and mortar opened, they were always going to lose that huge gain that they had. They were always going to drop back to some level. But I think what they tried to do is go, this is the new norm. And it was never going to be that. But you're right. They have increased that technology side of it. People are looking to bring more into even to the brick and mortar now. I think whereas before we were very stale. I think we got to a point where it was, this is what we do, and the only things that were changing really was, do we have no staff or do we have staff? That was pretty much where we were going with it. Suddenly the pandemic happened, everyone went, oh, online. Then obviously Peloton and all that technology came, and you're sort of going, well, okay, how did then we bring this back into the clubs? And I think that's made a really big change. And it's quite interesting because you're part of that fit tech group. So I can imagine you see the technology going. I mean, obviously we're probably down here. You get to see it from up there in terms of what's coming in. I mean, have you seen much in terms of the change from that? Sort of going, okay, the industry's going this way.
Incredible amounts. And when we talk about technology, it's got so many different elements. It's got all the stuff you don't see. And I spend a bit of time with Brian O'Rourke as well. So it's about automating the mundane, all the stuff that humans shouldn't be focusing on, anything that requires large amounts of data, huge decision trees, anything that's going to be taking us towards machine learning, all the automations, all the stuff. But shit in, shit out, right? You don't want to be putting in bad manual processes. That's got to be clean. But there's a whole lot of things that should be running automatically once we get it going. So you've kind of got everything happening in the back end. Then you've actually got the experience. So you've got, how does technology show up, and how is music selected better? How is choreography presented in a way that's enhanced? How are instructors put on a stage that has lights, camera, action, aroma, a feeling, so that can be heightened? Because if we are going to bother coming together, we want that to be a better experience, or a different experience. I shouldn't say better, a different experience, a contextual experience than if I'm getting something off my phone, my television, my wall, through my glasses, whatever it's going to be in the future. So I think technology has a lot of part to play. If you look at people like Keep Me, they're predictive all the way through. They're much better at sales, retention, marketing. They're going to give me the right images that I respond to, that I look at longer when I'm scrolling my feed. So you're beginning to get to the point where the processes and the experience are being enhanced by technology. And then you've got actual technology, like actual wearables still being the number one trend as we sort of hit 23. So that's one of the things that didn't dip off after the pandemic. It has continued to grow, even though you've had layoffs from Whoop and others. A lot of them are right sizing. A lot of them are getting more efficient, reaching different stages of their life cycle. So you've kind of got all of that. I've got the Consumer Electronics Show coming up in January. It always blows my mind. It's just absolutely extraordinary when you reach into what health tech, med tech are doing. They're already doing nano patches and ingestibles. And there's so many things, and I keep an eye on that, because one of the big trends I would say is that medical grade diagnostics in wearables, where doctors can monitor remotely their patients at risk, is going to converge with the fitness industry, in the sense that we're trying to track high performance, movement metrics.
Do you, just on that note, Emma, do you not think, because the one thing that we talk about a lot, and Glenda also is doing a lot of work in this side with the wellness and the well-being and that side of it, The one thing that's not really connecting in the UK, and I don't know what it's like in the rest of the world, you'll be able to tell us, but is this doctor fitness side of it. There seems to be a really disconnect, and the only places really that do it in any shape is our leisure trusts, which is a real shame, because you're sort of going, the cutting edge side of it is obviously the big leisure, the big fitness chains, the ones with the big money, where they're not having to look after communities, they're looking after whole things. And it just seems so strange we have this real disconnect between doctors and the fitness industry, when really they should be really close.
They should be, and you're 100% right. We've got, I think probably in this point, UK is doing better. I mean, you do have some efforts at it. If you think of Nuffield Health, if you think of 10 Health and Fitness, who, you know, it's a boutique, but they have a full circle of care because they hire people appropriate to that. But that's been a tough road. You know, Joanne and Justin have built that brand very mindfully. Here in the US, it's problematic because you've got Big Pharma really protecting their patch. Mm-hmm. Got Apple coming in with their promise to democratize health and to put it on our wrist and on our phones, and they will get there in the end. We're beginning to see Big Pharma, the medical insurance companies, the behemoths who have run and monopolized this for so long, starting to freak out for a couple of reasons. There's been enough innovation around the edges where new feature sets, it's much like the fitness industry. You get a new platform that comes in and now does personality testing. I'm thinking of something like Walla. You actually come in and you get a personality test. So now I fed programs and images and languages and responses that I want, not, Emma, you look lovely today, I hope you have a wonderful day. I mean, I just want to punch you in the face if you respond to me like that, because I'm a maverick. You know, I just want to strike hard and let's go. And so that's happening. So that's happened all around the edges of health. At the same time, Apple, who you never hear anything from all through the pandemic, no big launches, no big heroes. They're just quietly working on the agenda that's going to take over the world and change everything here in the United States, I believe. But
Emma, I think globally this is a massive opportunity to personalise fitness and well-being, right?
Absolutely.
I mean, we get people, and I know that we're speaking to the converted with yourself, but from a retention and a nutrition perspective, many of the reasons why they're not coming into our clubs is actually nothing to do with the club. It might be poor sleep because they've got a new baby, or nutrition is poor, or whatever reason it is. We should be tracking that data to try and join the dots. What do you think that's going to look like for the fitness industry in the next 2 years?
It's going to look in different ways. So there are some brands who actually did a digital transformation pre-pandemic, and they're very well set up. If you look at the likes of a Midtown Athletic, or someone that I think is very progressive in the club space, they had done a lot of the change that people realized they needed to do over the last 3 years. Now, the problem with the last 3 years is, A, we didn't know what was going on, so it was hard to plan for, and B, we were having all our resources drained. So at the very point that you needed to have your digital transformation, or actually know what your members do when they come in and turn right or left at the turnstile, that was pretty much where the data was running out. Oh, they're at the gym. What are they doing? I have no idea. So how are you going to serve that? How do you know when they're going to leave? How do you know what to give them more of and what to give them less of? So that's really what the boutique sector has done. It broke it into a small piece, made it really, really fine-tuned and focused, and then that's being reverse engineered into the greater clubs. So I think, there's going to be the winners and losers. You're going to have a lot more bankruptcies. You're going to have a lot more consolidation in the market, I believe.
Yeah.
In fact, when I talk to club owners and just people generally, they're finding it more stressful now than they did during the pandemic, because there's no government payouts. And by the way, you're exhausted. And by the way, your staff have churned a couple of times.
Absolutely. We've been talking about this all year, saying that it's going to be the sleeper effect. You were still getting some form of funding, and now all that funding's gone. And in the UK, the huge energy crisis. It's a real concern, right?
That's a pressure we don't feel as keenly as you do. We don't get close to the war, and we don't feel like we're not. Gas has started to come down again. No one really seems like they're freaking out, but everyone I call to over there, and you've also had salary hikes in some parts of Europe as well. So that's another 11 to 15%. And you've had, I was in Third Space a few weeks ago, and they were quoting an astronomical power bill. I mean, it was they can swallow it because they've got the money coming in, but a lot of people are not going to be able to.
Emma, one thing I would say though, because of your massive positivity, right, and we are getting some scary messages coming out at the minute. We've heard a lot about the energy crisis and the impact that that's going to have, both private and public sector. and then obviously the aftermath of the pandemic and losing the funding, etc. Tell the guys out there what you think's the positives. What can we do to make sure that we're going to go forward with a sustainable business? What's your big advice?
Yeah, I think the first thing is just to know that I really do believe we're in the best industry in the world. So we are in an industry that, despite the tough times, and there was always going to have to be a correction, right? You can't just print money ad hoc and think you've never got to pay it back. I mean, so this time has been coming for a while for all the reasons we know. The most important thing is to know that it will come right in time, because it always does.
Yeah.
But the trick is, how can you take your business, your set of circumstances, your people, your product, your process, and actually navigate the right journey for you over the next, let's call it 24 months, let's call it a recession. I'm sick of people saying, yes, we are, because by definition, we've been in this for a few quarters now.
Absolutely.
The layoffs are ridiculous. We were just waiting for the US, to be honest, for that, and unemployment has been really low. So it's been really hard to say we're in a recession because no one's got a job and there's no resources. But I think that's beginning to turn, although every time we poll, I have to say, there's a number of businesses that are still growing, that are still raising, that are still pushing forward. And remember, these are the times that the Microsofts, the Airbnbs, actually do come through. There'll be some sleepers, some giant sleepers that will come out of this as a unicorn. So my advice to people is, of course, you've got to reserve your resources, but for goodness sake, don't lose hope. We are still going to come out of this. Activity, awareness, health, happiness, all of that stuff we're inextricably linked to, but we have to be smart. We're always with resources, and that's the challenge. Do you need to partner? Do you need to become a smaller part of something bigger? Do you need to switch, your hybrid, do you need to switch certain services on? You've got to have a really good, honest look at what are you offering and what do you need to do to survive the next couple of years without losing enthusiasm, without losing what you love, because we've been through this. We know how to do trying times right now, but we have to be smart, and there's a lot of consolidation going on right now. There's a lot of unusual partnerships. Yes, we had Ludo and Mirror early in the pandemic. We've now had Vaha, and what's the there was a nutrition brand that's just connected with that. But the point is, there's interesting partnerships coming. I'd be on the lookout for that. And just to do things differently, like technology is your friend and can help do some things. We're even seeing, and it's hard for me, because I am seeing people being taken out of the fitness industry. The front desk is disappearing in many businesses.
Yeah, I find that fascinating. And some of the brands, and it's not about putting the spotlight on brands in a negative way, but there are fitness brands there now that have taken out the whole of front desk, and they don't seem to have been impacted yet. I was quite surprised at that.
A couple of things to consider here, though. One is, of course, you've got headcount, which costs money, right? And we get a lot of churn. So not only that, the worst thing you can have is to have a person on the front desk and have a bad experience. And the problem is, to make that a good, relevant experience requires a lot of training and a lot of awareness of who you're welcoming in. Is it Glenda first time, or is it Ryan, who's a regular 3 times a week? Completely different response that you would value. The other thing is, we're in an economy now where, you look at the youngers, you look at the Gen Z, the alphas coming through, they're very used to swipe and go. I will self-serve myself, but when I turn up, that coach had better be awesome. So where are we putting the human? Where are we putting the human?
I was going to say, that's the challenge, Emma, isn't it? Is where we do actually put the resource, because there was a big discussion over here in one of the magazines in terms of, I think it was the HCM magazine, in terms of one of the Aussie brands looking to grow, but all about no staff. It's all about and it's no I'm not quiet about it. I'm not a big fan. I know they're successful. I'm not a big fan of the rent treadmill clubs. They don't really float my boat, unfortunately. But there's a space for them. But I think we've got to be careful that we don't go that far, that the whole industry becomes all about one manager, one cleaner, and a couple of freelance PTs.
Well, I don't think it will, because every time you have one trend, you have a counter trend. So, at the same time, and that's why we had that bifurcation in the market. You've got Basic Fit, Pure Gym, Gym Group. You've got all the HVLPs, killing it right now, double-digit growth. You've got the middle in complete collapse. You've even got, layoffs happening at the top level, to be honest, because you've got a limited crowd that can actually afford during these times. So you're not going to get everyone trying to de-staff, but you are going to get people trying to create a particular experience around that. Now, the staffless places, they're for people who are price conscious. They want it open 24/7. That I'm good, just get out of the way, but your app had better be good because everything's got to work on this, right? So I've got to be able to get in, get my programming. If I need a personal trainer, I can get it here. So if you don't do it here, you got to do it here. So,
Emma, what are you thinking though? I do know that in London, the boutique clubs were really quite not back to pre-pandemic levels in terms of attendance figures, etc. Right? But when we now see the emergence of the booking systems that allow you to go to numerous health clubs as one membership, and we know that is going to be popular with the consumer, because the consumer, and you say this beautifully in your Badass Boutique book, about the consumer's very discerning for variety and a range of experiences. So how do you navigate that landscape as a club owner when you might obviously be up against that now?
Right. So first of all, accept it because it's here and it's never going away. Okay. It's, travel, retail, hospitality, restaurants, everyone has it. So forget it. Someone's found a gap in the market, and it happens to be that club in the sky, the aggregator, the intermediary, it's sometimes called in Europe. So it's here and it's going to stay. Now, the trick with this is you need to own your database. You can't have the aggregator owning your database. So a good example is probably one of the trophies in ClassPass would be something like Saints and Stars out of Amsterdam. They had spent so much money and done such a great job becoming a high-end VIP brand that, because I remember I actually talked to Tom and I said, look, dude, you should probably look at this at least anyway, because I think it will increase your marketing. But just make sure you never allow too much of your spots to be open so that they actually own your database and you rely on them too much. Now, sure enough, and I do mention it in the book that's coming up, they end up getting 30% of their revenue from this, but they still own their membership. Now, because they do such a good job, what then happens? Those members then convert to members, or they come more regularly. Now, it's usually at a discounted price point. So, and this is a very extreme example. This is probably one of the best run boutiques in the world. You know, it's obviously got access to money and has done a superb job on marketing. So that's one end of it. You have other people who don't have a community. It's desperate. It's like, we just need, we need 50% of our slots to be filled up by ClassPass. You don't have a business, is what I would say, because if you don't run that at the discounted rate, you don't get it. People don't love your product. They're not converting. So you are not good enough at whatever you're doing to own that space. And you're at risk. As soon as ClassPass goes away or they pump the price on you, you're screwed. So it's a real fine balance. It can work in your favor, but you can also get owned. But there's also, there's many things that they can bring. You've just got to be good. Now, here in the US, McKinsey, if you look at some of the data there, we are now in the era of variety. So we've all worked our way through the cycling and the running and the boxing and the yoga. Now we choose 3 things that we love. They might all be from the same brand, or they might be a yoga, a HIIT, and an outdoor hiking something. We find those things and then we double down on them. So we're seeing a lot of reversing out of the business models. So we're seeing, that's why I think it's the new club. We're seeing 4 on a floor. We're seeing, where people are now getting several boutiques together and sharing services again, which is really a club. It's really a club. But if you think about it, what's good about it? I love this because it's all about running. I love this. It's all about yoga. I love this. It's all about bar. The best of category now being run in a more efficient way.
Well, if you look at a lot of the clubs in London, Emma, they don't sell memberships anymore. Right. So a lot of the clubs now have gone literally passes. So you buy blocks 10, blocks 15, blocks of 50 even. But what they're realizing is they can't sell the memberships because people don't want to commit to one club. So you might have a Pilates club, you might have a yoga, Soul Cycle, whatever it is, and they're all selling the different passes rather than memberships, because they realize that if we go after the membership, we're limiting ourselves on volume, because we're the
interesting thing about pricing. So both of them have met in the middle. So the club, you were forced into a membership, 6 months, whatever.
Yeah.
And then the other way was just pay as you go. Like it was
merged.
Now, there's a problem because you have higher attrition in a boutique because, if it's pay as you go, I just have to do 1 or 2 or an intro pack, and then I'm off to the next one. And I literally run around town for 2 years is about the time that people run around town. And then they decide, I want to go to Victor Soul, I want to go to One Rebel, I want to, whatever it is. And then they hustle down. And then if there's a new one in town, they might visit it, but it's got to be really good because it's kind of got to knock one of these 3 off their post. That's kind of where it's at right now. And what's interesting in the boutiques is the boutiques are going the other way now. They're beginning to turn the part. Once I come, and I love Saints and Stars, for example, I'm going to come and I'm going to get a membership because I get better value for money.
Yeah.
And if I get the VIP membership, he's actually at the point now where they're begging it because they're at 90% occupancy, which is obscene. People are now saying, please get VIP so I can book classes more than a week in advance so that I can get the special treatment.
Yeah. And that's really lovely. But you the whole of this podcast so far, you really stress about the product and experience, right? So that brand that you mentioned, Emma, what would you say is the top 3 things that they do that have smashed it out of the park?
They got a real brand, so they got a VIP brand. They got a brand, and they never compromised on that.
Yeah.
Then they went after genre that were popular. Okay, so they started off with Shred, which was hit. That was when hit was number 1. Hit is dropping now. We're beginning to see strength coming through. We're seeing, yoga's always strong, but you're seeing strength. You're seeing hybrid workouts.
Just out of curiosity, Emma, is that strength as in CrossFit style strength, or is it literally as in people training on their own strength in terms of the heavyweights?
It's strength generally, but I would say it's driven in a number of ways. If you look at girls who lift, like some of the social media following is just enormous. So you've had a pandemic where everyone felt weak and disempowered. So you've had that. You've got this younger demographic coming through now that are much more wellness dialed in than we were, and our parents were certainly.
Absolutely.
We've got, they know that it's wellness. They've done the yoga and the meditation. They're much more open to that. A lot of 18-year-olds doing that.
Yeah.
And they're open to the strength because they're learning strength for longevity, strength for empowerment, strength for anti-anxiety, strength for all the ills that this crowd are going through is available. And it's driven by social media, by influencers, and it's time. People are sick of, doing burpees in the garage, and a lot of people were working harder, and a lot of people weren't even doing HIIT, let's face it. So it was this whole big misnomer, and everything sort of moves through. So strength, I'd say in the greater category, if you look at all the big clubs now, they're all bringing in strength formats. So it's not just CrossFit. I think CrossFit has yet to reinvent itself. I think obviously they had a big faux pas a while ago. I still believe in CrossFit. They taught us what community is after all.
I think the style of their training, even if you take CrossFit itself as a brand, is still got to try and sort its heels out.
Mastery. People want mastery. They want something that they can go in and do regularly and learn to lift and then feel strength and then do it in different ways. So whether it's body pump at one end or whether it's, heavy, like technical or Olympic lifting at the other, or it's women actually beginning to go into the weights room and slowly working their way from the toning end right into the strength end, where perhaps you're under the big squat racks and then maybe you're doing free weights as well. We're beginning to see that migration through the clubs as well. So strength is huge.
And do you still think the boutique side of it? Obviously that's where you've written your book and you're really famous for, as well as your other things, obviously. But do you think that's still an area for massive growth, or do you think it's going to settle a little bit, and the bigger clubs, the traditional sort of health club style, is still going to have an impact?
Look, as a concept, it's dominated innovation for the last 10 to 15 years. Even since a Soul Cycle moment back in 2006, really, when that was put on the radar. Then it's sort of proliferated, and then, of course, now. So I would say it's still going to inspire the change that we need to see in the fitness industry, but the business models are changing, the pricing models are changing, as we've talked about. So what we're now seeing is unsuccessful, and the Boutique Fitness Studio, Boutique Fitness Solutions have just released their fall 2022 report. 43% of the reported boutiques, and that's sort of right across all the genre, across the US and a bunch of other countries, is 43%. So 43% of that market, that reported market, is making a profit. Most are either flat or not. Okay, so that's the reality. Now, pre-pandemic in 2018, 2019, it was late 40s. So it's never been particularly profitable. If you think about it, everyone's not knocking it out of the park. A few people are doing very well and a whole bunch of people are not.
Yeah.
So that's the reality. Now, what is happening is we're taking the sentiment of boutique, and that's coming out in different ways, whether it's club and club. And I just heard from John at Third Space overnight. So they are continuing to build out better single focused experiences within their club, as our Equinox, as our One Rebel, as all the clubs are doing that. So there's club and club. Then there's boutiques going into the club. So LA Fitness here in Los Angeles, Exponential is taking some of its programs into the club to house them inside the club. So club and club model. You've got 4 on a floor, which I just talked about. So that's something like Style Studios in the Midwest, where they literally have 4 boutiques, a gym floor, because PT is one of the big trends. So people are wanting that extra time with a personal trainer or a self-guided strength training workout on the floor. So that's happening. Or you've got something like Drop Fitness, where it literally is a real estate deal. Let's go after 4 or 5 boutiques. Let's share the services, the cleaning, the front desk, the maintenance, and let's have the best of the best. And we could even switch those out if we needed to.
It'd be interesting to see if that sort of model drops into the UK and Europe.
It will be. It takes away the risk. So they do a rev share. So Fitting Room, for example, is one of the examples. They go in, sure, they train the staff, they're using their methodology, but all they're doing is rev share. So this risk.
Do they tend to have one master franchise looking at, you know how, I don't know, a lot of franchisees will own a Taco Bell, a Costa Coffee. Is it that sort of thing where one franchisee is going in and having an Anytime Assault, you know what I mean, having the 4 themselves, or is it 4 different owners under that one roof?
From what I understand, I mean, whoever owns the deal could be anyone, but it makes sense in real estate, because we all got caught with our pants down, because whoever thought a trophy property in downtown London, downtown New York, downtown Sydney would be a disadvantage? Whoever thought?
Never.
You'd never thought, but that's been driven by work from home, because even now they're estimating in Sydney an 18-month recovery, and that was before we even considered a recession. You know, so it's very slow. There's just not enough footfall. And then we're finding if people do go into the office, we thought, oh great, they'll all come to the boutiques. If they go into the office, they're probably trying to do 6 days of work in 3. And so they're not necessarily having that time to sort of cruise and, you know, go to the boutiques and do this, that, and the other. So it hasn't returned in the way that people thought it would.
Emma, you raise a really good one there. What do you think's the future of corporate then? Because so many people that need to do what we offer are all sitting at their desks in corporate. Now, I know we've got working from home now, but do you think we're going to see the rise now of corporate wellness?
We are, and every big brand is trying to go after corporate right now, and it has to be hybrid, right? Because you've got people working remotely, you've got people working from around the world, you've got, you know, work from home almost, in some businesses are 100%. Now, in the search space, and we've got to talk a little bit about people trends as well, but in the search space, we think it's going to swing back a little bit. Like 6 months ago, for example, it was a pure candidates market. You could have 6 offers on the table saying screw you to most of them. I want mental health, I want this, I want to work from home, whatever, I want to work from the beach, all of that. Then all of a sudden, layoffs, all of a sudden recession, and all of a sudden that's turning now back to the business. Now, we're only at the beginning after the pandemic of understanding the cultural deficit that some businesses will be in because of hybrid working. So yes, you might be more productive, that's all we talk about, but do we talk about the fact that the team never gets to get together, therefore it's very easy to leave, therefore churn's going to stay up. I never truly bleed blood for your brand, maybe, you know, all of these things we have to work out. At the same time as you've got Simon Sinek saying businesses have had it too good for too long, basically treating us the same for the last 200 years. So there's all of that happening, and where's it going to settle is that you have to be purpose driven. You know, the youth are not going to do anything that wastes their life, that they don't believe in, that could be.
It's really interesting, especially in America, Emma, because obviously over here we've got a lot bigger labor movement. I mean, you can see it at the minute, they're all on strike, but you guys don't have that in the US. I watched a really interesting program about it, how it was basically quashed 100 odd years ago, and they stopped. So the companies have always had the upper hand, and I think because of mentalities changing in the people, that's actually started shifting the other way. So I think people have now started to realize they don't need to accept the terms that they're given. and with a strong labour market, or you know, with very few jobs around that are, very few people to fill the jobs that are around, it's easier for them to dictate, like you're saying. So that will be interesting, especially from a hospitality industry like we work in, where people really, you can't work that much from home. I mean, it's all right, me and you and Glenda with what we do, but as running a club, you can't have your manager. I mean, we got a request the other day from someone who wanted to work from home for 10 hours a week. You're like going, you're the club manager. How does that work?
Yeah, but these are the times that we're in. And so to answer your question, Glenda, yes, corporate, everyone's going after it because it makes sense. And you can be damn sure Apple will be too. And if you get to the point that you're doing sweat to earn, move to earn in the metaverse, and you're able to track, because it's going to be linked, and that whole circle has to be created. You know, the way that you look after your body has to be remunerated through health insurance and things like that. You know, the green prescription, all of that stuff has to work into a social, you know.
And are you excited about the metaverse, Emma? Because it's something that I try to get my head around, and it is sort of I can see where it's going, but I can't fully understand the huge benefits.
We don't fully understand it. We just need to know that it's an evolution. It's very, very rudimentary. We're literally back in 1996. The first email's been sent. That's pretty much where we're at. But you're beginning to see brands dabble in it. It's just going to be an extension of what we're seeing now. It's going to be us moving through our life, but we're going to be in and out of digital aspects as we are now. They're just more subtle. You know, you can go into an Amazon Go store. You don't have to check out or anything like that. So it's more like that. Augmented reality, they think, is going to be more powerful probably initially than virtual reality, just because you're in a world and it's still clunky. But you know that Apple Glass is going to be coming. You've already got the Ray-Bans that can do it.
Well, we love our we've got the Oculus and everything else, and we love it. We play the cricket on it and all sorts. And me and the kids.
I'm just thinking though, you know, in terms of the corporate, Emma, I know a lot of them are disillusioned with apps in terms of the low engagement percentages that we're seeing. And I know that quite a few of the direct corporates, you know, a lot of these organisations now are getting twitchy about, well, they will definitely only want to pay now for active users, where in the past they might pay population based. But I just think there's a huge opportunity for a major brand on a hybrid model to get people back into the office.
I think there is too. I think the trickiness, like when you talk about the low adoption, if you think about it, you think how hard we've worked to get the 20% who actually like the thought of exercising. Think how hard that is by the time you're a sedentary person at home on the couch with an open packet of biscuits and trying to step into this world. It's not until there's a whole picture painted around. I mean, it has to be. It's a carrot and stick thing. You know, if this isn't done, then that isn't got, which sounds terribly draconian, but it's kind of the only thing we only do well in wars and, you know, and when there's in World Cup, you know, like it's crazy, this whole middle way, but there has to be more way. But if you look at the people, and that's why gamification is so powerful. Yeah. I mean, my latest example, I'll talk about it in the book, is with Bout in Lisbon, where he's really built in all the gamification, really gone down to how do you motivate people at a behavioral level. And it's very interesting. And he's creating a creators economy where you can become a trainer and you can earn if people do your workouts and do this. And so that is taking it to the next level, because as human beings, I believe we are inherently creative. We do shut that down and put ourselves into systems, or perhaps we're put into systems by those in power. So I think these are the walls to break down. It's to connect back into our humanity, to connect back with nature, with the support of technology, but not instead of. Like, I think it's a hybrid. And you know, whatever you think of Elon Musk, I do worry when he says we're going too fast for our own good. I do worry about that.
I understand. You know, Emma, I'm just conscious of time, and you mentioned this book. Is this a new one that's coming out? And
it's a new and improved. So I had a lot of feedback. I mean, most people are learning through listening now. So I had a lot of people say, can you please commit your book to audio? And so I thought, oh, great. So I lined up the studio, and then I started reading it. I'm like, oh, shit, so many things have changed. I've got to rewrite the whole chunk of it. So anyway, it ended up being a bigger project, but I wanted to get it done by Christmas. My last recording's on Friday, actually. So I've run around the world. It will be current as of January 2023, but I will give that warning that expect things to change. Like every month, there is something very big that happens, either a consolidation or, just something bigger.
I think the challenge with what you do though, Emma, because you give so much insight in terms of how to do things, a lot of it is very current. So I can imagine if we went back and read your old book now, you're sort of going, that might not necessarily apply now, but that's because of the way you write.
The principles do. Okay.
Yeah.
So what I noticed was the principles are solid. You're going to be talking about people, product, process. I've got 10 Ps. You're going to be still dealing about that.
Absolutely.
You've got to have a brand. You got to have great people. You got to have processes in place to be awesome. Like that has not changed. What had changed was the examples.
Yeah, exactly.
So, a lot of the businesses have gone out. They've bought them. They've consolidated. They've dropped.
It's a huge movement, isn't that?
But if no one's read your book, I'm going to put my hands up and say they need to read it. I've read it, but
It's
they
a
need to
brilliant
read
book.
it because it's a fabulous insight, Emma. And I think obviously it's definitely a labour of love, and you've put a lot into making sure you give your knowledge out to people. So if people haven't read it, it really doesn't matter what type of business they're running in fitness. I think 95% of the principles, if not 100%, apply to their business. It's a matter of taking your principles, looking at the examples, and then adding them how you need to into your business. So if people haven't done it, we'll put a link to your to how they can get hold of it at the end of this podcast. I think it's really important, people, whether that's the new audio one, which I'll probably listen to because I do like my audio books, or the hard copy, and they need to get on and read it. Now we're running out of time, so a couple of things I want to. We always ask our guests, Emma, other than your family, because we know obviously family is important, and the family have dragged you around the world and giving you your love for travel, so we know they're going to be an inspiration. But who else, whether that be in the industry, outside the industry, really gets you going, either gets you thinking or really motivates you to do what you do?
It's a fascinating question, and to be honest, stand-up comedy is what I'm binging on, and I say that because I think it's the only place you're hearing truth right now.
Absolutely.
So I love it, and we're very fortunate, Comedy Magic Club here in Hermosa Beach. So we have Jay Leno, and we've got some really great, but I love Ricky Gervais. I mean, oh my God, anyone who can get away. But I love it because it's truthful. Trevor Noah, who's just taken himself off the Daily Show. So I love it because it's truthful. Wherever there's something funny, there's an element of truth. Now, I don't believe any of the media outlets, almost none of them, because I just know that a lot of it's bollocks, and someone's got an owner and they're managing the message.
Yeah.
So
I'm with you there.
I take great inspiration in every conversation that I have, and that can be with anyone, whether it's someone in search, a fit tech conversation, a client, a candidate, anything at all, because in diving into their world, there's always such nuggets. And then I find, do I have any big mentors and role models? I've sort of had a year off that because everyone I've held up on a pedestal has sort of fallen off it. And I think it's an unrealistic expectation. I mean, you think of it, every brand you love. I mean, I've worked with some of these brands that's like, holy shit, where are they now? And it's like, so the point there is I take the principle of what they're doing, because I think it's too much to put on a human to be perfect, but I'm always looking for what's interesting. And, of course, I love Oprah for storytelling stuff. Of course, I love Shark Tank for showing us what's possible in business. But do these people make mistakes? Of course they do. Are they perfect? No. Have they done bad shit? Probably. I try to just take in a non-judgmental way, just try and take good. But it's the stand-up comics that have kept me going, kept me laughing.
That's good advice, that is. Really good advice.
Yeah.
And Emma, just as a final thing, what advice would you give people out there right now for the next 24 months? What would be your parting wisdom?
My parting wisdom would be, I heard a great comment earlier today, and if you feel like you're disintegrating, celebrate that, because I think as people we're all falling apart, as businesses we somewhat are falling apart, as countries and as a world. I feel like we couldn't have more pressures going on, just the whole totality of the last 3 years. So celebrate that, and then as you sit in the corner with your bucket of ice cream or whatever it is that you do, mindfully pull back the pieces that you want in your future, in your business, in yourself. There's ways I just get overwhelmed sometimes of all the embarrassing, moments that I wasn't my best self, and I, all those mistakes you've made, and it's like, no, just take them on and just sit in them for a second, and then just piece yourself back together mindfully is what I would say. But be smart and be prepared to be wrong. Like, if you start something and it's not working, it shouldn't be that hard. Like, there's a difference between passionately following something to the grave and actually going, you know what? All the data, the timing, the people, the advice, my resources.
Emma, that's such brilliant advice, but that's a little bit away from the DNA of the normal average entrepreneur, right? Who has always this, mentality of not failing, right? And as much as we know that's not a failure, it'll be a big learning point. They still have this idea that it's got to succeed, and I think that unconscious incompetence, that bias that you get when you're blindsided to a project.
I don't want to kill the dreams. I get your point. I don't want to kill the dreams, but also you have to be very honest.
Yeah.
Not everyone is an entrepreneur. Like, I don't mean that disrespectfully. I mean, to be an entrepreneur, you have to be prepared to live on beans for 2 years.
Absolutely.
Live in your backyard, code through the night. Like,
totally.
Philip Mills, are you a Richard Branson? Are you, are you some of those sharks?
Yeah.
Or are you just wanting to be creative and expressive, and maybe do it with the support of a
sponsor? That's a great question for someone to ask themselves. It really is. I think that also, if anybody's listening right now and is in that point where things are either going to go one way or the other, I think that that's a really valid thing to consider, because we can put good money after bad, right? And if the writing was on the wall, it's important that we can see that. So I think that's good advice. We're going to finish on a positive though, right? Major positive.
Of course.
So what's your big thing to finish us on?
My big thing would be, if you sit still enough, or put yourself into your happy space, whatever that is, outdoors with family, maybe you just need some space on your own, is that I truly, truly believe that all the answers that you need are within you.
Yeah, I agree.
And partner your way to find those and exploit those. Like, we're seeing some of the biggest brands on earth partnering with unlikely partners as we build this new world. And I think that collaboration, that co-creation is really the secret. So I think we're over this whole territorial competitors. I mean, yes, of course, it's still competitors and all that sort of stuff, but get over that, get beyond that, work out what really lights your fire, and then just find the people that you can contribute to what they're doing in order for you to shine brighter. But also, and it always comes down to service. It's always, always, always about serving someone else. And that's why when you say, "Oh, you're really famous," I'm like, "Oh God, I hope not," because I know what happens to famous people.
Well, you're on your way out then, Emma. That's it. You're
right. This is my last gig. But it's much more important to serve people. So if you can light a fire under a person, or create passion, or help them do what they do better, that's actually the secret. And that's what people, we've had so many deaths through the pandemic. That's what people take to their grave, is the way you made them feel.
Everything I've ever read from you, Emma, is always the message about service. And you're always with that massive sparkle of passion. So I want to thank you for that. It's really always warms my heart.
Oh,
absolutely, and we'll have to call it there, because I know everyone's you're on a time deadline, Emma. But really appreciate you jumping on with us today. Obviously, if anybody does want to get in touch with Emma, all the details will be at the end. Definitely go and buy the book. And hopefully we will get you on again at some other point, Emma. We'll try not to leave it 3 series before we get you on again. We'll definitely try and get you on again. And we really appreciate your time today. So thank you very much.
Thank you for having me. I'll either see you over there or come see me if you're over here.
Absolutely. And have an amazing Christmas, Emma, when it comes with your family.
You too. Thank you both so much. Ciao.
Ciao. Thank you.